Okay, perfect timing with the music is now came to an end for now. We're gonna start the session. Thanks everybody for joining us on Facebook Live and on the app. We have one more speaker who's gonna jump in a few seconds, but until then, let's start. So we have Nicole Byers over here from our coastal office, right?
Hello.
Hey Nicole, we have Halley Wright, you're going to help to moderate as well. Thanks, Halley.
You're welcome. Everyone's favorite moderator, right?
That's awesome. Yes, of course. So we're here to talk about pricing, right? Pricing in this market, pricing overall. We'd love to hear strategies and creative ideas or what have you. So Nicole, tell us a bit more about yourself first.
So I am a Long Beach local. I graduated from Wilson, and then I graduated from Cal State Long Beach. I have my major in communication, minor in marketing, and I've been with the Green team now for, 5.5 years, so with Eric Green. So
Awesome.
he taught me everything that I know. He taught me how to make my first CMA, and now, I'm doing a lot of the CMAs, and so he really just taught me everything that I know.
And you're doing a great job.
Thank you.
And then we have Karen Abram. Karen.
Hi.
Hello. Welcome. Good to have you. Can you hear us? Can you hear us fine now, Karen?
Thanks for having me.
Yes, of course.
Sorry?
So, Karen, tell us a bit about your background. We did the opening that this session today will talk about pricing in this market and pricing overall. So, give us a spiel for a second.
Okay, so my background in pricing is I've created analytical pricing models to help Fortune 100 companies figure out how much to spend on their advertising efforts. So I've helped Nissan, Infinity, Sony Electronics, all movie studios figure out how much to spend in advertising and then how much they would get in return. I became a real estate agent. I utilized that background, brought that in to help someone figure out what's the right offer, what's too aggressive, and what's too conservative, and ultimately use that experience to create dashCMA, which is a pricing tool that really helps you explain in a visual, interactive way where you can walk the client through with them what's the best.
And I must say that, besides being super proud of you as well to building this incredible tool, which is a game changer, it really helps many of our agents in the Forward Living group getting this tool as part of being in our offices. But it's really game changer. There's a lot of great tools out there, but this is like really the next level. So we love at one point as well throughout the session for you to share some of those concepts and also what made you a very successful agent, as well. So, yeah. So let's just open up and talk about just pricing overall. Like when we talk about pricing, what is your approach? How do you, Nicole? How do you guys are a very busy team over here, right? How do you go about pricing? What is today's market right approach when you're talking about buyers, sellers, etc.?
Yeah, of course. So I think a positive and kind of something that I have is I'm from Long Beach, so I know the pockets. I check the MLS every day, really checking the pricing, staying on top of it. But when we are looking at pricing, the square footage, when I am doing a CMA, the two major things, bedrooms, baths, square footage, those are the really two main objects that I am looking for while pricing. But again, kind of going back to being the Long Beach expert is knowing your areas. If you know the area, you know exactly kind of where the price range should be at.
Yeah. And well, just to mention, the green team, Nicole is part of the green team, not only listing that this area, but it's definitely point that is well made. Karen, what do you think?
I think it's important. I agree with
Go ahead.
my audio broke out a second there. Sorry about that. So I agree with what Nicole said. And can you hear me okay?
Yes. Perfect. Yes.
Okay. I agree with Nicole said, knowing the area is critical. I think also adding to that, knowing how features impact pricing, how pricing a property is too large or too small, to be able to inform your clients on maybe if the price truly should be, let's say, $750,000, and they want to offer $700,000, being prepared to let them understand that their price is more aligned to properties that are 30% smaller or with one less bedroom in this neighborhood. So being able to kind of talk through those nuances to say, if that's really your price point, then this is what your criteria should look like instead. And being able to have that conversation beyond just your standard lowest, average, highest in the neighborhood is key. So kind of what Nicole said, knowing the area and being able to comment on, here's what price it, if you're looking at this range, you're looking at properties that are 20% smaller. Or if you're looking in this range, you're looking at properties that don't have a pool. And being able to have that conversation and bring in what they're looking for and tying it to price is what helps differentiate kind of your more mature, seasoned agents than the agents that are looking at just strictly average.
Absolutely. Those are some great points, Karen. That's a fantastic way for us to show value to our clients, right? And really make yourself and your business stand out when you're going on these listing appointments. So along those lines, I have a question for the two of you. I know the answer, but I want you to share it with the world. So I've been talking with a lot of realtors between the difference of providing comps and doing an actual CMA. Right? Because they are two completely different processes. So do you guys do an actual CMA and not just provide comps? And explain to me why, one or the other, and just kind of your process of making that decision, if that makes sense. Nicole? Yeah.
Okay, I'll go. So we use Cloud CMA. And we do a whole CMA of the information about our team, going over the comps, going over every single number, going over all of the pictures, going through the difference on why this kitchen is a $30,000 kitchen and the pictures of this kitchen are a $50,000 kitchen. And we have also all of our testimonials, which I feel like are extremely important, especially while going up against competition. But we do the entire CMA because I feel like anyone could just take the comps, give them to someone and say, okay, here are the numbers. But especially with a seller, you really have to go over all the, specifics. You can't just throw something and say, oh, here it is. We're going to put your house on the market for $625 with no explanation. So we really do the full on, and we have a customized Cloud CMA that we use as well.
Yeah, and I think that's a great opportunity for branding right there to get your values across to your potential clients when you go on these listings. Because again, CMAs are a market analysis, right? So that's the difference between providing that and comps. So Karen, I assume you're using a CMA, right? I assume you're using dashCMA, correct? So talk to us a little bit about that and why you prefer to use a CMA rather than just providing your seller's comps, for example.
Okay, so I'm going to answer that with a quick example of ultimately why I've decided to create dashCMA. So a lot of your comparable market analysis presentations will just show kind of a comp after comp after comp. You're just page of reviews without prioritization. And here's what I noticed that would happen. If I sat with a client and I had my first client was a buyer, there was a property was listed for $1.2 million, but it should have been listed for close to $1.5 million. He wanted to offer $900,000. And what he did is he would sit through that list and that big packet, that big presentation, and he'd flip through until he found the one property that did get close to $900,000, picks it up and says, they can do it, why can't you? And I wanted something that would really help highlight that where that is on the spectrum. I wanted something visual to really help communicate that where your outliers are, where you have support, and it would help me defend why this is the right price point, knowing that there's going to be an agent before me and an agent after me defending a different price point. And more money always sounds better, and I need to do a job of helping my clients understand why that may not be realistic, and being able to highlight to them that that price point would be competing with other properties on the market that are 50% larger or are 100,000 over the most recent close.
I think we lost you, Karen.
How I like.
Hey, Karen, we lost you for a second.
Oh, did you lose me?
Yeah, can you go back to
what
you were saying? Can you go back a little bit?
Sure. So I'm not sure how far to go back, so I'll just kind of start in the middle. But can you hear me okay now?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. One thing you need to know is I'm not shy and I'm happy to talk. So, so with him, he wanted to offer $900,000 on a property listed for 1.2 that was going to ultimately sell for 1.5. And I struggled with helping him understand that. And if I just give him a big list, he's just going to go through that list, find one that supports what he thinks that price point is, and say, they can do it, why can't you? So I wanted something that would take that list, organize it in a way that was visual to help him understand that's the outlier. That's not realistic. Help him show that price point is more aligned to properties that are 50% smaller or without the features he wants, and be able to show all of that to him in one view to help him see that, look, if we don't get it, it's not that I didn't do my job, it's that we weren't realistic. So I personally present comparables in the perspective of 20 different types of perspective in one view. And that's why I use dashCMA.
Right. Of course. Yeah. No, and I think you bring up a great point, Karen, that, CMAs and that preparation, it's not just for the sellers, right? That they should be and can be utilized when you're submitting an offer. Everyone would encourage that. So, I think those are great points that, when talking to some clients, particularly with this market change that's happening, we need to set expectations and, make it known, right? Because it would be great if we could double our money for every seller out there, but it's just not reasonable for this market right now. That's fantastic. So let's say you guys are, preparing your CMAs and stuff. What do you look for when you're looking at comp properties? Right? So let's say you have a whole slew of them. You've got 20 different options. What is your approach with that in finding comparable properties in regards to pricing?
So, you want to go? We're all go.
You're the talker. Let's go.
So, I like to start with basically saying, I'd like to start wide and then I narrow in. So what I like as an agent, I said I created dashCMA because that's the approach I wanted for my own business. I wanted to be able to say to a client and do it with them to say, look, let's start with looking in your neighborhood at properties similar size, same bed count, similar year, and let's start there. Maybe that gives us about 30 different results. From there, I say, now let's go through it and let's prioritize some of these. What you have an updated kitchen, or you're on a cul-de-sac, or you back up to a busy street, or your home needs some updating. Whatever those features are, I'm going to go through those properties and I'm going to spotlight the ones that stand out from the 30. One, so I can compare how those properties compare against the 30 without having to delete the others. I want that perspective of, is the home I'm pricing above or below the average 3-bed of this size in this neighborhood? So I start kind of wide, I narrow in, and then I start to show that perspective of, okay, how else can I slice this data? What about what about the ones that are most recent or now closest in proximity with this feature, without this feature? And I slice about 20 different perspectives in that one view to help them understand where that aggressiveness kicks in and where it's more conservative, where are we safe.
That's great. Nicole, same question. I want to hear what you guys are doing over there.
Yeah, I mean, same exact thing, starting with a wide range. And then, we really focus in on the square footage, the bedrooms, the upgrades, and then, move forward from there. And really, we do the big circle on, the MLS and then grab and then really narrow it to really like the top. Usually I like to pull like between 10 to 15. I don't want to go. Usually, actually, 15 is a lot. Usually around like 10 to 12, I want to say, we would pull the properties and then, eliminate the ones, oh, this one has a pool. The property that we're selling does not have a pool. Okay, let's eliminate. Or, yeah, maybe that one does have another feature that the other one doesn't have, but very, very similar with everything else. And it's just really knowing those comparables and being able to explain why we did pull those comps that we did. But I think it is really good grabbing the wide range. And there's sometimes too, with the properties, oh, this house is actually above the freeway and the house that we're selling is below the freeway. So we have to take that into, account as well.
Absolutely. So with pulling comps, let me throw a scenario at you and I want to see how you guys react, right? So we all love those little treasure houses that are 1 in a million. You can't find any comps like them. They're huge or they're tiny or there hasn't been anything recently sold in the past couple years. What do you do?
Is it okay if I start?
Go ahead.
So I'm going to base this off of Eric. He does flip properties. And so when he does do this, we do come across this a lot of the times because he's putting in 100,000, 150,000 of upgrades, and it's in a little tiny area where the houses are from 1920 and only half of them have been remodeled, but they haven't had, new plumbing, new electrical, really taken down to the studs. So what we really do for this is we would have our seller make a list of all of the upgrades that were done to the house, and that's really how we are able to, pick the price where we're going to list it at. And also for the appraisal, which is a huge thing as well, we bring that list of upgrades with the whole CMA to show them, look, this house has had, over $150,000 of upgrades. So we do come across that a lot of the times, but as long as we've had that upgrade list, we've been good, and they have appraised, knock on wood. But so that's kind of how because we do come across that a lot, especially with the flips.
Yeah. And I think you bring up a great point, Nicole. You really need to be aware of the value that some of these things are bringing, right? What does a new floor mean? What does a new kitchen, kind of put some type of dollar amount on it to really be aware of that value that's impacting that property. And you just slowly add it up, right? You add up the bathroom upgrade, you add up the granite counters or whatever. And then, tack that onto the price. So Karen, kind of same question. How do you do it if you don't have any good comps to use? What is your thought process?
Okay, so I think when you price a property, you have to have 3 different viewpoints. One, to what Nicole said, you have to look at it the way an appraiser would. So that's ultimately anyone who buys the home who needs an appraisal. You need to have a sense of where that would appraise, or need to have a loan, we'll need an appraisal, so you need a sense of how it will appraise. So that's one. You need to have a sense of what it will appraise for. 2, you have to have a sense of what a buyer would likely pay for it. Just because it will necessarily appraise for that value does not mean you're in a market where you will get that value. 3, you need to know the seller themselves. What is their, how bad do they need to sell this? Are they in a situation where they need to sell within that first weekend? Can they wait? And they kind of measure out the market and the circumstances now. That flexibility and kind of individually and weighing kind of how you can, I look at the full picture on that.
So you guys bring up a good point.
Did I cut out?
Oh yeah, no, we heard you, Karen. Thanks. So you guys bring up a good point. So here's my question to you. When you present these CMAs, do you take the approach of giving a price range? Do you give a set price that you're suggesting to your sellers? How are you going about that?
I think I'll answer on this. In dashCMA, I allow the option to show both price or range because personally, I don't think it's an agent decision. I think it's a client decision, and I like to feel that out. If I get the sense that this is going to be within a $10,000 difference depending on the situation, I'll show it as a range. But there are definitely some situations that if I show a range, I know they're just going to focus in on that highest number, and that was my recommended price. And if I fully don't stand behind that as my recommended price, I'm only showing one value. So it kind of depends on what I think how that client will interpret a range versus a single price.
That's really interesting. It's an interesting thought process of how mental this is, right? Yeah, absolutely. It's psychological.
I like to use the example of if I told you that I had a new pair of $800 Louboutin shoes and I don't need them, I was going to return them, or I'll sell them to you for $10. Your first thought is, right? But if I said I have a pair of new Louboutin shoes, I was going to return them, but I'll sell them to you for $7.25. You feel the difference internally of, oh, that's somewhere within the range of my expectation. And very psychological. And the most challenging part is understanding where is that range that I can play within. And once you know that, then it's just defending your range.
I think that you lost me with the Louis Vuitton shoes, by the way. I'm just trying to wait.
I don't have Louis Vuitton shoes. If I have them, I'm not selling.
but do you have the ability to share screen, Karen, and show us some visual on some of those pieces out there that what you do? It's going to be easier, maybe like nicer, maybe also like Nicole. I'm not sure, Nicole. I'm not sure if you guys utilizing Dash or different tools, but you can also jump in and make some comments because I think some people visually it's going to be very, very helpful to see what you're talking about. And one of the reasons that we brought Karen on the session today because she built this like powerful tool that a lot of people just don't utilize. And one cool thing I noticed, especially in our offices, that more and more people are very humble about I'm gonna try to use this system or that system. I'm gonna learn more about this technology, that technology more than before. And none of what we have is new, right? It's been around for, let's say, 2 years or so, solid. So let's see what Karen came up with. We can see your screen, Karen, right now. Go for it.
Okay, great. So the idea is when you enter that address for the property you're pricing, we know the tax records for that property, so we know it's a 3-bed, so we suggest a 3-bed. That 1845 square footage, we suggest that range, we suggest that distance and so forth. Back to what Nicole said, casting that wide net. So that way, if I was walking through this with a client, I would explain to them, listen, we're going to start by looking at properties that are same bed count, similar size. Recency is very important in terms of an appraisal, as is neighborhood. So with that information set, we check the MLS. We find those properties that match right from here. We find 20 closed, 6 active, 7 pending. And then from here, you can review each of them. I can review them with my client next to me. And I can decide which ones I want to prioritize by giving them a star. Those stars are then spotlighted right here so that I can explain to my client that these are the ones that I spotlight. They need some update to the bathroom, whatever that story. Then I also look at a few other perspectives. I check public estimates. Byers will. I want to know how much, and I look close price. The closest close price, the median. And select features. My client wants to know get for having a pool versus not having a pool. Well, I can let them know that right now there are active properties on the market, same bed count, similar square neighborhood with a pool, going for $834,000, and properties in the area that are also in this going for about $130,000 less. The market is suggesting that a pool adds about $130,000. The same for flags, and this is definitely my favorite feature of the tool, and I created it to help kind of get rid of those blind spots that we have in our presentations, in that for asking me that they want to, I want to help them understand that at $1 million over properties in your neighborhood, same bed count, 25 to 50% larger than yours. So, and help them see how that price point compares to those similar properties effective here. And that's realistic. And then back to enter as a price or a range. The more realistically, I put this at 6. I then show it to them in price per square foot. One, to just demonstrate that I'm comfortable and knowledgeable in both. So whichever way you give them that option of in price, but at the end of the day, I'm trying to bring across, and if I'm saying that, then I'm my own testimonial at that point. So I brought that. And finally, the last thing we point out here is that market conditions will highlight in the area. Clicking it.
Karen, hold on for a second.
I'll click into it.
Karen, hold on for a second. We can see the screen right, but your voice just a little bit coming in and out. So just the last few seconds. Hopefully it's going to stabilize again.
Meny, yeah. Do you think we could have Karen do like a explanation screen recording and then post that for us? That way folks can better see her program if they're having issues.
We're gonna have a separate session with Karen. We'll do only Dash. This is not a Dash class, right. But she's sharing what things that she's doing, and here's another cool thing about that, right? And I would love to hear you as well, Nicole. People are very visual today, right?
Yes.
And think about yourself as well, right? When like what's capturing your attention and what's not, right? And you saw this the last page that you stopped at. The visual that they built in Dash, it's amazing, right? Now compare it, for example, to most of the agents today by default, by habit, using Cloud, right? dashCMA, which is a great tool, but it's not as sophisticated and visual as Dash. So I think that it's kind of cool presentation that really capturing, and even like just say like one snapshot of this page, it's engaging, right? What do you think, Nicole?
I just like all of the tools on Dash. I like how clean cut it is too. It's very specific, and that's what the sellers or the buyers want. And so I just loved all the different tools on it. I definitely, Karen, if you do a class, I will definitely be in that one, because if we can, any way that we can boost our CMA, that looked awesome. So I would definitely be open to being on that class and learning all about it.
And I think it's nice because it again, we by default, if anyone is doing CMAs, use Cloud CMA. So you using something that is different than your competitors will make you stand out by default, right? Because you're offering something that is more technology savvy. We are a tech company here. Something even visually that's going to look different, right? Yes. It could be the same information, but seeing it in a different way might build a better connection.
Stephanie, did you have a question?
No, I love the fact, I mean, I just love everything that they're sharing. And Karen, the program that you have built is amazing. And I definitely want to continue to, all of us want to continue sharing it with our family, right? With our KW brothers and sisters, right? To add this enhanced tool for everybody to, stand apart and just elevate ourselves. Like, we're high tech and high touch, right? And the one thing that keeps popping in my mind, even though it's not necessarily relevant to, it's an extension of the CMA, right? So one question that I just keep thinking about is, yes, so we have pricing, but then also we have the marketing aspect, right? It's all part of the listing presentation. So my question is, what adjustments have you made to when you segue into the marketing, right, regarding the showings? Because obviously with the certain circumstances, everything has changed. Are you going to do incremental showings? Are you going to do a virtual open house? So if you guys don't mind, would you kind of highlight little adjustments that you've done when you segue into that other aspect of your presentation?
Karen, do you want to go first? Do you want me to go first?
I mean, in my own, I do, I think more than, well, for one, even before this situation, buying or selling a home is the most uncomfortable decision anyone has to make. It's a huge financial decision, and anything you can provide to bring comfort and understanding helps. So my approach is basically to, one, acknowledge that how uncomfortable and stressful it is, and to say, why don't we approach this together? This is your house. This is your decision. This is your money. You're ultimately the decision maker. Let's do this together. And I start from the beginning, and and I'll do it on a Zoom call, and I used to do it also via a Zoom presentation, and I walk them through it. I help them understand. We're going to look for similar properties in your neighborhood. We're going to start there. We're going to go through these. We're going to look at them. We're going to pick them out together. We're going to give nods to the ones that are too large or too small to be comparables, so that we're aware of what's happening. Because there's not, as someone's looking at other properties, there's not giant X's on houses saying, stop, this one has an extra bedroom. So want to make sure that I'm aware of everything and walk them through that. And as they see that and they start to see those trends as it's changed, that comfort sets in, and then that conversation turns to me where they ask, what do you think? And that's where I can say, okay, based on what I know in my expertise of doing this, here's what I think. But we have to get through comfort first. And I think right now there needs to be extra hand-holding. There needs to be that extra step taken to say, let me really help you understand why each step of this process is as critical as it is to consider when we're going into pricing.
Yeah, I completely agree. We've been kind of giving our clients the option. If Eric had just listed a condo on Ocean, and he's known, this family for, childhood. And so they were okay with him coming in with a mask and gloves and booties into the home because they know that he's been quarantined with, just his family. But I've been seeing both sides. I had a buyer consult yesterday that I had to do over Zoom. I had asked, would you want to meet and be distant, or would you want to just do Zoom? And they said, yeah, let's just do Zoom in that aspect. And kind of going to like the marketing side as well. I don't know if this is off topic, but obviously we've been hitting our social media so much harder because that's really one of the main things that we can do right now to keep our team in front of people, dropping off Popeye gifts with gloves and masks, and just really staying in front of our clients the best that we possibly can during this time.
And, both of you really touched bases on, what I think the three key important things to communicate to your sellers is that they need to be in alignment with the market, right? And really those three things to be competitive and to be in alignment that you can control. You have pricing, you have terms, and you have your availability, right? So explaining that to your sellers, writing that into your CMAs and saying, look, this house didn't sell because it's in the middle of COVID and they wouldn't let anyone through and no one could no one could see it without writing an offer, or, this one was a lower price, that kind of thing, or terms, for example, doing long escrows, doing short escrows. It's important to express all of that in your CMAs, which I'm sure you guys do, because it does affect how the market is moving and will ultimately affect the sale of the home.
I think that's a really good point, because you do have properties falling out of escrow, not by the buyers having cold feet, but because of loan circumstances changing, and understanding those timelines and how those that criteria has also become a lot in terms of those terms is critical when you're looking at days on market for properties.
Yeah, absolutely. So being aware of the terms that you're requesting, and especially when you're going back and forth, if you have multiple counter offers, explaining that to your sellers is just extremely important right now. And you can settle those expectations with your CMAs, like both of you ladies have shared, which is great. So I was going to ask a question here. Shoot, I wrote it down and now I can't find it. Does anyone else have a question? Let me figure out what I wrote down.
I have a question.
Go for it, Meny. I had one, but I need to figure it out.
So, Nicole, you guys do a lot of sellers in this area, and it's a diverse, type of sellers. Can be investors, can be just conventional, what have you. Do you run into objection recently, pricing wise, when they say, hey, should I wait? Maybe the market, the housing market is going to jump up because of inventory, or because, everything's going to go back, or hey, should I not wait because price is going to go down, or whatever? Like, any of those objections?
Yeah, so I was dropping off Popeye gifts yesterday, and I saw one of our clients that we've worked with for a while, and he's probably going to be selling within the next year. And he had asked me, he's like, how's the market? And unfortunately, as we would say, we don't have a crystal ball. But what I did tell him is I said, hey, look, I just opened escrow 2 weeks ago. There was multiple offers on the property, and we had to go 7,000 over asking and really lower contingencies and really still be aggressive, even when we're in the times that we're in. So it's hard. That's kind of how I've been dealing with those objectives, telling people, hey, there's buyers still out there right now, and we've just got into a multiple counter situation, and we're in the middle of a pandemic. So, telling them, however, whenever and when we do decide to list, we will make sure to do everything that we will possibly do to get you top dollar for your home, and we won't stop until we do have that achieved. So that's just kind of how I've been going about it. Again, it's hard because we don't have a crystal ball, and I don't know where we will be at, in a year, but as of right now, my buyers are still out there. We're writing offers and, going into multiple counter situations.
Awesome. Yeah. Karen, do you want to add to that from what you see out there, your experience, objections and such?
Yeah, so I agree. We don't have a crystal ball, but it's hard to say in that sense. But I think when you're looking at it, from a comp, and you're really looking at that individual territory, you can see whether or not that specific home is leaning towards a buyer or seller market. And as long as you're looking at it in those that criteria and not as a whole city, one, you'll be better set up. But then two, I do think it's really important right now. It's always important, but now probably more than ever, to really understand what's happening on the financial side of things. Because, for example, cash out refis. There's a lot of banks that are cracking down against that. So if you are a seller and you are if you are someone who's interested in a cash out refi because you need cash quickly and you have trouble getting it, you may now list your home for less just to get the cash faster, in which case that's going to change market values. Unfortunately, we are a pricing system that is heavily dependent on this recent sales. So the value of my home is very much dependent on the value of the home that's similar to mine that sold a week ago and a month ago. And if they were in a situation that needed to sell quickly because of the tighter terms being put within banks right now, that's going to affect the value of my home, even if it's not my situation. So I think kind of paying attention, seeing where that's going is going to ultimately bring some prices down now. I do think there'll be a quick rebound.
So I have a question because you opened that conversation. Yeah. This isn't about CMAs necessarily, but about pricing. So you've priced your listing, you're on the market. It's not selling. You're doing everything that you can do. Another home, around the block just sold for less money. How do you have that conversation with your sellers, with doing a potential price drop? Where is your tactic in your head, and what type of data or processes do you use to help support that price drop justification?
Okay, so I use dashCMA, obviously, for that, but it comes back to me to the three perspectives of one, what's my home worth? Yes, the home may be worth more than I list it for, but it comes back to those other two. How much will a buyer pay right now, knowing that they are aware that the most recent sales in this neighborhood went for less? And then three, what's my personal situation as a seller? Can I wait, or do I need to sell this home? So just because it's necessarily that value does not mean that's the value it will go for if you're not in an economic market where a buyer will pay that. And if I'm in a situation myself where I need to sell it faster than wait out its full worth. So I show those different variables to help have that conversation to say, yes, we have the receipts. Your home is worth this, but based on your need to sell in a month to get those funds out of your home, this is where you would need to sell to be able to get it faster off the market. Or this is based on this current situation of buyers' interest in this type of home. This is where you would have to be able to reduce your price to meet the buyer interest. So I show it's a hard conversation, especially when the home is truly worth more.
I completely agree with Karen. That was the most perfect answer. The pricing and, I think the amount of showings you get to that first week, that kind of lets you know as well, okay, good. We just had 8 showings in one day. We're ready to roll. If we maybe get 2 to 5 showings in the first week, we kind of know, okay, we might be a little bit on the higher end right now, and, kind of wait between that 21-day to 30-day mark. If we really haven't gotten anything in writing, that's when we know we have to go back to the seller and say, look, we have had X amount of showings. This has been the feedback, and just kind of go from there. Karen, you totally covered that question, but that's kind of just how we approach it and go from there.
And I don't know if either of you have done this, but I've seen other realtors do this, that they'll actually build in their price reductions into their listing agreement that they take. So after 30 days, we will reevaluate the price, or we'll drop it $5,000 or $10,000, particularly when a seller maybe wants more than you as an agent believe that you can get for the home. So that's another idea to help kind of that difficult conversation. You have it right away so that you do set those expectations quickly. But that's fantastic information, you guys, and great advice. I think it's important that we're, I love to say that my big fat Greek wedding comment, where it's like, the sellers are the head, but the agents are the neck, and it's our job to turn them whatever way that we want them to turn, right? So even though they may be making the decisions, it's our job and our responsibility to help guide them to what you believe the best decision is, right? That's great. Meny, how about any questions? Or Stephanie, you're sitting over there. How about any questions for the peanut gallery? That's what we'll call it.
Actually, you know what, Karen, I have to say it was such an amazing perspective that you just threw out there regarding, because we've had these conversations in multiple meetings regarding cash out refis, non-existent, but we didn't tie it to the other factor of the sellers may need their cash out, right? And that will affect the pricing. So you bringing that up was a huge aha for me today, right? And I'm sure for everybody else on the call. So my question, a couple things would be, one, how many of those conversations are you having, right, currently, for both you and Nicole, right? For both you and Nicole, how many of those conversations are you guys having, and also, what are you seeing as the biggest objections coming from your sellers currently? Right? Because that will be, I'm just like intrigued by this whole thing about, the cash out, where because everything always comes down to motivation, right? It's always motivation on the seller's portion or the buyers, but we're talking about the sellers right now. So yeah, so how many times are you getting that objection? Are those conversations really starting to ramp up? And then what is the biggest objection you're getting from your sellers right now?
I'm personally not getting any today, but if I had a crystal ball, I would predict that you're going to have people who need to have cash faster than currently being supplied to them. I mean, based off of the numbers in terms of unemployment of where things are right now, we have an economic market that does need to have a cash flow, a more accessible cash flow. And it's becoming a very much of a reality right now to people who assume that they should have access to the funds that are in their home. If you don't outright own your home, the bank still does, and they can set terms in place that do not allow you to cash out. And if that happens, then your only option to getting those funds would be to sell your home. So while I'm not in that conversation today on that, I happen to be married to a home loan officer who is in those conversations, which people wanting to get those funds faster and starting now to consider listing. In which case, if you're going to consider listing and you truly need that, you're probably not going to be it out and sit at the highest top dollar value, in which case you'd see those prices drop.
How about you, Nicole? Anything to add?
I mean, Karen, that was, again, a great answer. I feel like people are everyone's kind of in just a hard place right now. We don't really know where the market is going, and you get those calls and, do I refi? It's like everyone's a little bit frantic right now. And so I think it's just kind of calming down the sellers too and going over every single option possible that we can go over with them right now, just because, I am getting the calls. Do I sell now? Do I wait till June? What do I do? And the hardest part is we don't know when this is going to be over. And I think that's really the conversation that I've just been having with with the sellers right now, is where do we kind of go from here?
And I think in general, if you're in a position as a seller to get top dollar value for your home now, get it now.
Yep.
We don't have that crystal ball to say that you will still be able to get that in a month. Get it now. But if you're in a position to sell and that top dollar value is not clear because there's a lot of inventory that's not moving in your area, or because that value for your features that you added are not showing up in buyer demand right now, then yes, if you have that luxury to wait for your top dollar value. But if you truly can get it now, you should, because buyers are looking. We are seeing that. It's just definitely a process now.
So it sounds like, you guys are just doing everything to be the voice of reason, the calming factor, and have the sellers and or the buyers, right, for that matter, just focus on the now, because we have no idea what the next 30, 60, 90 days are going to hold for any of us, right? So just be proactive and do the best we can and put the most amount of money in everyone's pockets. You guys are amazing.
Yeah. Go ahead, Nicole. Go ahead.
Sorry, especially with my buyers right now too. I'm telling them, let's get out there. Interest rates are still low, and I don't want this to come off the wrong way, but there is less competition out there right now because of the situation that we are in. if I can get a buyer out and negotiate and, get them an additional $5,000 for closing costs, let's do it. So I'm still trying to keep, my sellers pumped up and excited, and especially the first time home buyers who really just need to be, held right now and just kind of loved on, because they get so excited and then something like this came up. So just kind of keeping the energy up with them, still checking in on them, and making sure, hey, if you see something, let's get out there and go and view it and write on it right now.
Yeah. And I think both of you kind of brought up the big objection, right? Which is what happened, why, should I wait? Which you hear from both your buyers and sellers. I always say, what if it doesn't get better? Where are you going to be? I mean, use a little bit of the fear. Again, it's a psychological game. If you need to sell right now and you say, it's good right now, what if it doesn't get any better? What if you don't get any more from your home 6 months from now? What kind of financial situation are you going to be in? Right?
Well,
yeah, go ahead.
The other thing I would add to that is most people, if you need to sell, you have a timeline. You generally know that you're going to sell within the next 3 months or the next 6 months. So using kind of myself as that example, when I sold my own home, I knew that I was looking to sell within the next 3 months. I was looking at pricing. Average pricing was showing around $520,000. I was looking almost every day, refreshing it, looking at that inventory and so forth. I looked at it and saw that on one day, opportunity hit. All of a sudden, of the 9 properties on the market, 8 went into escrow. There was 1 left. It was stale. It didn't have a pool. It wasn't as updated as mine. I knew that was going to be my only competition on the market now. And I could see that the properties that went into escrow, the ones at the higher price point, were more aligned with mine. Things stacked up. So at that point, I thought I could today now price for $620. It never went through my mind to think maybe I should wait another week to see if I can get $700. Because in my mind, I was able to see as I looked at it and trending backwards, the last few weeks were steady at $520. And now I have an opportunity at $620. And we did. We listed for that. We got $640 that weekend. And I guarantee you, there's no way if we listed the weekend before against the 9 other homes on the market that we would have gotten the same price. But you can only wait your opportunity out so long if you know you have to sell within that 6-month period. So I think it just comes down to doing our jobs the way we have been, but just definitely representing that data to help them understand, listen, I know you just started looking this weekend, but let's say you've been looking for the last 6 months. Here's how this price would have compared to the last 6 months. So I just saved you 6 months of looking, and here's your best opportunity. So that's why we show trending.
Yeah, and if you can read between the lines, Karen, especially if you took or take in bold, Karen using a lot of embedded commands. But that's one of the recipes to success, because the language is, you're the advisor. Karen will never come and tell them, hey, I know the best, or you have to listen to me or whatever, or that's just what it is. But she'll present the facts as they are and add the visual aspect to it. And how wouldn't you do your best to make a solid decision based on those facts, right? So that's just one point to make. And the second point I want to make, Nicole, you have the perfect name to work with buyers, like Nicole Byers, like it's like
the buyer's agent.
That's awesome. Is that your real name?
It is, yeah. So before my last name's Byers, and then I became a buyer's agent on the green team. So, but it always sticks. So at open houses too, when I'm giving them my card, I always say, just remember buyer's agent. They always get a good little laugh about it. But a lot of buyers have called me and said, oh yeah, I remember, you from your last name. So it's never changing. So if I get married, it'll not change.
That's awesome.
It's not fair. She's the buyer's agent and she's Mrs. Wright. So
I am always right too, Karen. Always right.
Karen, you should consider to change your last
Abram.
name. Karen, you should consider to change your last name to Dash. So,
yeah.
Well, we are gonna set up a time to get Karen. I know that we do have Karen next Friday on my 1 p.m. live industry updates. She'll do another feature over there. but we'll schedule a time only with Karen and Dash to feature the systems and everything. But I really want to thank you, ladies, Nicole, Byers, Karen, Abram, with Dash, for your time. Halley, thank you for moderating, Stephanie as well. And yeah, thanks for sharing, and just keep doing a great job out there. Stay safe.
Yeah.
Okay,
Thank
thanks
you,
everybody.
ladies. Thank you, Meny.